Hi, it's Musolini, the merchant of success, and today we are going to focus on effective decision-making formula 2.0. So this is a very, very critical session because in one way or the other, we are always making decisions. We make thousands of decisions in the course of the week. And when I say decisions, like this morning, I had to decide whether to stay in the house or go away for a walk. All right, so all those are micro decisions. So there are so many, there are big decisions, there are small decisions, there are micro decisions. So just know that we are always making decisions. And I know we also have a lot of leaders on this room right now as of this recording. And this is what I know. They made research many, many years ago in the US amongst the top executives. So what happened was they asked them that, okay, so what do you find to be the most important skill for a CEO or executive? And guess what? The number one skill they felt was very crucial for a top executive is decision making, and hence the value of what we are going to go through. So once again, I go through 5 pillars: the clarity in terms of the what and the why. We look at the mindsets, we look at the strategies, we look at the skill sets, and of course the mastery. All right. Now let's look at what decision making is. It's really selecting a course of action from a range of alternatives, or you can call it from a range of choices or options. So there are different options available to you, and then you choose. So today you had different options before you, and you decided to attend this class. For some of us who are attending live, if you're watching a recording, you had a range of alternatives and you chose to watch the recording. And ultimately here, what we are looking at, since we are talking about effective decision-making formula, it's really a process of selecting a right and effective course of action from 2 or more alternatives for the purpose of achieving a desired result. So in essence, that's what effective decision-making formula is all about. Because you may make an option or you may choose something, but was it the best course of action? Was it an effective course of action? And that's what we are looking at right now, or that's what we'll be looking at in this program. So why is this skill important? You see, it's important in that a leader's job is to make decisions. Okay. That's why when something is crucial in the moment, all eyes turn to the leader. If there is something crucial, all eyes turn to the leader. They want to know, what is the leader thinking? Right? And when I say leader, I know some of us lead teams, some of us may not, but either way, an effective person makes decisions. Making decision is a right we can't live without, right? So you're always making a decisions, and those decisions are available to you. So it's a right you can't live without. You cannot deny yourself making a decision. Even you not deciding is a decision. You decided not to decide. So in one way or the other, you're making a decision anyway. So you might as well learn the skill or the ability to make decisions. And also, decision-making is essential for providing unity of action. What I mean by that, if you're a family, as an example, if you're going for a holiday, for example, then I have to share it with my wife. And then we decide that, okay, let's go there. Okay, let's go to this country, or let's go to this place. We decide where to go for a family holiday. If you're at the workplace, then just know that there could be several options available But for the team to choose one option, a decision has to be made. Someone has to make a decision and say, you know what, this is the direction we are taking. Then everyone, rows towards the same direction. So unity of action, for unity of action to be in place, there has to be a decision made. Because if there is no decision, if you're at the workplace, as an example, you guys, you can go wherever you want, then the organization is going to be torn apart, or the team is going to be torn apart. If you're a family and you're telling each other, you guys can do whatever you want Monday to Sunday, well, guess what? There won't be an identity for that family. It's also a criterion to determine whether a person is in management or not, all right? So, meaning if you're looking at a team or at an organization, typically people who make decisions means that they're in management or they're in a leadership position. So that's one of the ways in which you determine that's one decision-making power is one of the ways in which you can determine whether someone is in management or not. Okay. Yeah, I like how Emily is framing it, that indecision is a decision. Absolutely. You're deciding not to decide. Either way, you decided or you made a choice. So it's a decision. Good. I like that. Someone was asking about the giving more info around the last tip, that it's a criterion to determine whether a person is in management or not. So what I meant by that is your capacity to, number one, your capacity to make a decision is a sign that you're in management. Number two, when we say whether a person is in management or not, so it's one of the ways to demonstrate your managerial abilities. That's one. If you're the one in management, it's one of the ways to demonstrate that your managerial material, so to speak, your capacity to make a decision. Number two, though, for you as an outsider looking in, if you are in an organizational setting and you see someone making a decision, then most likely that's also a sign that they're in management. That's what I meant. Now let's switch to mindsets. Here are the driving mindsets for effective decision making. The first mindset is the ownership mindset. And when you say ownership mindset, it means when you're making a decision, for example, and you are in an organization, then what you need to be doing or what you need to be thinking about is, if I was the owner of this business, of this organization, what sort of decision would I make? Would I choose this decision? And for me, it's one of the most critical mindsets, especially if you are hired somewhere, or you're a manager somewhere, you're a leader somewhere, whereby you're not an owner of that business. In my view, it's the most crucial mindset. I'll tell you why. There are some people who make decisions out of laissez-faire. They are thinking, after all, it's not my organization. After all, it's not my money. And you even see this mentality seeping through even to middle management and some staff saying, but do you think, is that organization your father's? Is that business for your father? Is that entity for your mother? So meaning there is this detachment of thinking, this is an entity that I'm not at, that is not so crucial to me. And I'm here to propose to you, that's a very dangerous mindset. So my belief is, one of the keys to making an effective decision, is to ask yourself, if this whole organization or entity depended on me, what sort of decision would I make? If you are at home and your parents have left you to be in charge, before you make a decision, ask yourself, if the whole family depended on me, is this the kind of decision I would take, or is this the decision I would make? So once you adopt that mindset, it will really put a lot of responsibility on your shoulders compared to just deciding without any bother on your shoulders, so to speak. The second mindset is any decision is better than no decision at all. That's something I've shared before in one of the sessions. I don't remember which one, because this is something I learned in my early 20s. I was listening in to a conversation by a gentleman that I now call uncle, because I mean, he literally became a father figure. It's called Charles. I won't mention the second name for purposes of, keeping his identity. He doesn't like publicity. And Charles was talking, Uncle Charles was talking on phone, and I heard him say these words: I would rather have someone make a wrong decision than someone who doesn't make any decision at all. And what that taught me in my early 20s is you have to make a decision. The problem is most times people fear to make a decision because they don't want to make a mistake. Now, that word mistake is also a biggie. I also have to state that sometimes people, let's say managers, hold back to make a decision because they made a wrong decision some time back and they were punished for it, or they were banished for it, or they were abused for it. And therefore, they develop a fear towards making a decision. And I'm here to propose to you that one of the things you can do if you're leading a team and all that, just be the kind that is also welcomes people to make mistakes so they can learn from those mistakes. Because if they don't, then nothing will happen. And I also have to add this, that as parents, I have children. As parents, we have a huge responsibility to let and allow and engage and train our children to be able to make decisions. Some time back, I was engaging in a training, and someone who was around the age of 18 had never crossed the road by themselves. And we were doing a training for senior 6 leavers. And when I heard that, I told that young lady, I said, no. I told the parent, I said, no, you're not going to pick her. Let her go with her colleagues, let her find her way home. Because you imagine that you're not even allowing an 18-year-old to make a decision on how they are going to travel from town to home. And everything is decided for them. That's how we cripple people from making decisions. So sometimes when my daughter asks me, what do you want me to do for you? I'm like, okay, what do you suggest? What would you like to do? Because I'm hoping and praying that she can learn to make her own decisions in one way or the other. So back to any decision is better than no decision at all. Because in decision, you're not able to know. When you decide, you're able to know whether you made a decision, a right decision, you carry it forward. When you make a wrong decision, you learn from it, and either way, you're better off, right? The other key thing to be aware of is you have to, you have to be aware, and one of the other key things is you have to pay attention to your personal biases. You have to pay attention to that. I was talking to my coach earlier today, so I had told you we talk on Mondays, and he said, most people do not really listen. I said, what do you mean? He said, for example, if you go, if you're of a certain color and you go to this country and speak, they will not even listen to you because they are imagining that you don't know that language because of biases. So he said, usually people do not listen enough because of personal biases. So they are listening to their biases rather than what you're saying. So meaning, as an individual, You have to keep asking yourself, how can I minimize my biases when I'm making a decision? Because your biases may limit you. Of course, sometimes they may serve you. So that means you have to, as much as possible, think, how can I make a decision from a clean slate? Because I'll tell you, for example, someone may have failed to deliver on a certain project last time. That doesn't mean that they won't deliver today, because that other last time, the project could have been outside her skill set or his skill set. That time it could be that they were in a bad place. And that time it could also be that they were with the wrong teammates or something like that. So before you totally get them off, of course, past history influences decision-making and sometimes usually sets precedents, notice the word usually, but not always. Therefore, when you liberate yourself from personal biases, you might find that that person is now different. Because the example I like giving is that, someone could have changed just last night. They enrolled for a course and now they are new human beings. They got a coach, now they are new. There's someone I've been coaching for the last 1.5 months, and they were demotivated at work. They were, for one reason or the other. And last week when we were talking, she told me she was fulfilled to work, meaning the performance is much higher. Why? Because I helped that person on mindset issues. I helped that person to heal the emotional baggage that was carried over the years, and we helped clean up that baggage, created a new vision, set new goals and all that. So if the boss of that person was to gauge that individual based on what was delivered 2 months ago, then they are wrong, because that person is like brand new now. Then the last mindset to pay attention to is the action-oriented mindset, because decision is about you moving forward. Therefore, you have to decide, you have to get into that frame of have to do this, have to take action. So when you're in that mindset of action, then the decision has to be made. Because if you do not, so that's like choosing to make a deadline. So, what? This has to be done no matter what. It has to be done, must be done now. And when you in that mode of must be done now, then a decision has to be made. You have to decide whether to go east or west, whether to write a story or just write a book. And part of what holds us from making decisions is the fear to act. Sometimes I find myself in those moments until when I liberate myself or peace process or heal those challenges. And by the way, if you're the kind also who sometimes feel stuck, sometimes it is the stuck energy, emotional baggage just crowding your mind. So, and once that is done, just like that person I'm telling you about, some of the things which couldn't be done months ago have been cleared just like that in weeks, because that emotional baggage was cleared. So sometimes when I find myself not acting, I know that it's emotional baggage that I need to let go of to heal. So it's the action-oriented mindset. So these are mindsets. If you have the ownership mindset, you know that any decision is better than none at all. You work at minimizing your biases. And again, I believe it's also really minimizing, because it's challenging to have zero biases, so to speak. And then, of course, think action, action, action. Once you're in action mode, then a decision has to be made. Once you decide that this has to be done, then a decision is on the way. Oh, thanks, Patience. Patience Mutoni says, thanks for the testimony from the lady who was motivated at work. I share my gratitude this afternoon. Coach Ethan helped me a lot on my self-confidence and self-esteem growth, and I got clarity on the life issues I was facing after just a month after meeting him. Great. Thank you, Patience. Proud of you for all the progress that you're making. And you're just getting started. Even greater things are on the way. Now let's look at the strategies. 6 strategies for making effective decisions. Strategy 1, strategy guided decision. Look at the future that is desired. Move beyond the tactics and focus on lasting solutions. Now, strategy guided decisions, it's not just what's here now, it's what's in the future, what's in the horizon. And one of the ways you can do this at a corporate level, what you can do is, before you make a decision, one of the things you need to look at is, what are the strategic objectives of this organization? And then you ask yourself, the decision I'm going to make, is it in alignment or disagreement? Because if it's in disagreement, then you need to change that decision. If it's in agreement, then you need to seriously consider that decision for adoption. Because then you know that strategy is in the long term, and so you need to think about that. Now, at an individual level, you need to ask yourself, what is my purpose? What is my vision? What are my strategic objectives? By the way, if you don't have one, then you may have to schedule a personal strategic plan session with me. I do that also. So if you're going to make a decision, one of the things you have to pay attention to is to ask yourself, what's my long-term vision in this? What am I looking at in the long term? And then you ask yourself, is what I'm going to do going to help me do that, achieve that, or not? And this works across the board, even in the smallest of issues. So one of your long-term visions could be great health. So then you ask yourself, okay, is having chips and chicken and ice cream every other day in alignment? Is it going to help you achieve that goal? No, it's not. Then you drop that decision. If you know that one of your goals, I feel inspired to share this. I don't know why, God knows. So one of your goals could be that, hey, I want to make sure that my children are raised in a family setting. Therefore, it would mean that having live sex is not a good decision, because it's not in alignment with your long term. Live sex with someone that you've not committed to yet for marriage. So I always tell young ladies, please, if you have not yet made a decision and there is a commitment for marriage, assuming that's the path you want to take, and you know that until that moment when the guy has committed and you know you're married, then please have protected sex. It's not safe for you, because there are many guys, unfortunately, I'm a male species, there are many guys who do not want to own up, to take responsibility once a lady becomes pregnant. Then I've heard of many stories of where guys, once they impregnate a woman, then now all of a sudden they become a totally different animal. And if you're a guy also, think long term, not just the immediate pleasure now. Think long term. Is part of your long term strategy really to put the lady at risk of being impregnated and any other options or things that might happen? So think long term. Why not use a condom, for goodness sake? That's looking at the future. So meaning we have to so I'm talking about the lady, but I also have to talk about the gentleman. And I'm here to also propose to you that if you have ladies, those who are attending live, and if you're watching the recording, you have the powers to say no, no condom, no sex, period. If we are married, yes. If we are not married, no live sex. Sir, and you insist. It's a decision. Of course, God forbid if it goes the extreme, and because I've also heard of other stories that I don't want to get into. But gentlemen, if you're listening in, please, if you know that you have not committed to marrying this lady, please be respectful, think about the future, use protection, period. Just felt inspired to talk about that. All right. Then the other one is about urgency. That's one of the strategies. And you ask yourself, how urgent is the situation? See, this requires a swift decision made without an extrapolated process. Because there are moments, there are emergencies. Emergencies sometimes do not require, holding a general meeting, an ad hoc meeting, another meeting. No, there are those moments whereby something is urgent and needs to be, boom, done there and then. So you just need to be aware of that, in that not every decision requires a meeting and so many other engagements and all that. All right. So the key thing is always remember that there are moments whereby urgency takes precedence. The other strategy is the objective-based strategy. What are your ambitions? How does this affect them? What are the possible ramifications if a decision is not made? So this is somehow linked to strategy, the overall strategy. But now this one goes now, when I say objective, you can replace objective to goals. What's your goal? What are your ambitions? Is this going to, let's just suppose one of my clients is working on a book right now. So that means one of the decisions that he has to make, and I was guiding him, I said, look, you have to spend some money to get an editor, a professional editor. I said, well, I have one of my associates who's good with editing. So just let's get it done. And I told him, look, when I was starting out my first book, I did not invest in a professional editor. And when I read the book, I was embarrassed by the grammatical errors and all that stuff. So I had to redo the works. I don't want you to go through that. So it was so he got the point, and he quickly gave me the money for me to engage an editor, a professional editor, to work on his book. So one of his ambitions is getting a book published, and not just getting any book, but an excellent book. So because one of his ambitions or goals is an excellent book, therefore making a decision to engage an editor is very easy. So meaning, apart from you asking yourself the strategy question, which is the overall vision, the other question you can ask is, what are my goals? And how does this affect my goal? How does this affect my ambition? Is it going to affect this positively or negatively? Those are questions you need to ask yourself. Okay. The other strategy is the pros and cons strategy. So Benjamin Franklin is the one who popularized this idea, in that you get, if you're going to make a decision, so you get a piece of paper or notebook. Let's assume you have a notebook. So what you do is, in your notebook, you put a line and you add pros and cons. So let's just suppose you're deciding whether to buy land or not buy land. So what are the advantages? You write them. What are the disadvantages of you buying land now? You write them. Then you weigh which one weighs out the other. Now, also when you're weighing, it's not just the number of cons and pros, that which one has the most cons and which one has the most pros. It's also the weighting attached to that. What I mean by that, you might find that there are two advantages, but those two advantages, the actual value of those two advantages outweighs the other 6 or even 10 disadvantages. The other disadvantages are many, but they are not so weighty. They are not so big, so to speak. So you spend some time, and I would say, given time, this is what I would propose in terms of mindset in general. Holding other factors constant, apart from moments where something is extremely urgent. It is, if you're doing, say, the pros and cons conversation, sleep over it. Write it down in your notebook, sleep over it. Okay, sleep over it, think about it, take your time. Of course, like I mentioned, there are those moments where you don't have that time and you have to decide now. But apart from that, spend some time thinking about that, pros and cons, and you weigh. Say, okay, when I look at both ends, I believe this way of moving forward is much more valuable. The other key strategy is the WIFM strategy. What's in it for you or for me or for us if a right decision is made? So now here you're looking at definitely the benefits. Am I really going to benefit out of this? And of course, you're judging the benefit from the input. What I mean by benefit versus input, for example, you're learning from me right now, but guess what? Your input is 2 hours of concentration. Therefore, the value I'm going to give you had better outweigh the 2 hours of time that the 2 hours in terms of time. So the WIFM is about you asking yourself, okay, what am I going to get? So I'm sure when you looked at the topic, you're like, I believe this will be valuable. This will be very valuable. This will be 2 hours well spent if I can learn the formula on decision making. So this is this is a strategy whereby you spend a lot of time thinking in detail about the benefits, about what you're going to get out. Not just the cost, but the better. What's in it for you? What's in it for you as a team? What's in it for you as an individual? What's in it for you as a family? Okay. And then the last strategy is the group-based approach. This is where you involve other stakeholders, seek another perspective. This is very useful. And I really feel, one strength in one context can be a cost in another context. This is what I mean. If you're very smart, then you can make some really great decisions, so to speak. The challenge, though, is with being very smart, sometimes we think that we know it all. And sometimes I catch myself doing that, forgetting that there is value in also seeking or taking advantage of group wisdom, collective wisdom, especially if they're intelligent heads. I don't believe in this business of 2 heads are better than 1. My addition is 2 heads are better than 1 if those 2 heads are smart. So if there are some smart heads around you, please, engage them. Okay. Now, if you're at the workplace and the decision is going to affect the whole team, as much as possible, please engage the whole team. Because one of the biggest complaints I hear in consulting with several organizations is most employees feel they are not involved in decision making. Now, the truth of the matter is you cannot involve everyone in everything. There are those decisions that have to be taken at a managerial level, and that's it for certain reasons. All I'm saying is most decisions really, it would be very useful. So for me, if I were you, this would be something that I would tap into as many times as possible. engage the stakeholder. If it is, some of us here, I know we lead non-for-profit organizations. So if you're serving a certain clientele, a certain target market, have you engaged them in this new program that you're starting? Have you consulted them? Have you figured it? Have you asked them? Have you contacted them? If you are leading a team, have you held a meeting and sought ideas? And what I usually advise managers is this. I usually tell them, look, you will be pleasantly surprised to find out that when you ask your team, usually 8 to 9 out of 10 times, you'll find that they are thinking in the same direction as you, which is perfect. Then all of a sudden, when you make a decision, they will feel like it was their decision, not feel like they will own the decision because they participated in it. And even if you have a different idea and you add it in the mix when you're having this conversation, either way, they feel like they participated in the decision making. So as much as possible, if you are a leader, please engage your team, tap into collective intelligence, tap into collective wisdom, co-create these decisions. Then there will be very minimal resistance towards implementing those decisions. This is a strategy that I feel is the most underutilized. Leaders thinking that just because you're a leader, you have to always make a decision, so you to decide on behalf of people. Well, there are those moments where there is a deadlock and then you decide. And by the way, just to be clear, as a leader, it does not mean that you always have to agree with the team. There are those moments whereby as a leader, there are certain things you can see that you may not see, or there are certain interests of the organization you may have to defend. So I'm not saying just consulting means that you always agree. No, all I'm saying is tap into it. And most times you'll find that you're on the same page, and you can then even use that opportunity to influence that team to think like you're thinking. And then lo and behold, you'll be on the same page, all right? So someone is asking, how are the pros different from WIFM? So pros are really just about advantages, and an advantage may not necessarily be towards you as an individual. So for example, when we say pros, it could mean that the organization is going to generate more cash or is going to get more revenue. Now, that does not necessarily translate in me as an employee earning more money. But WIFM is about me as you're thinking at an individual level. How do I benefit me as an individual? And so the WIFM strategy could mean that, hey, you will still have a job when we are earning more money, or when the organization earns more money, if we are to combine both strategies. So the pro and the WIFM, they are related, but not exactly the same. So pro is generic in terms of general advantages, but WIFM is about me, the individual benefits. How do I benefit as an individual? Okay. Skill sets. Steps to making effective decisions. 1, problem definition. That a problem well-defined is a problem half solved. So you need to find out what the actual problem is. One of the best ways that I came across in terms of defining a problem is to go 5 levels deep. Then you identify the real problem rather than the symptom. For example, let's just suppose you have a rat in your house. That's a problem. But is it the real problem? Well, you could ask why. You ask why several times, going deeper. The 5 why method, it could be 7 levels deep or 3, until you go to the actual cause, root cause. And if you have a rat, it could be that you have food in the house. Okay. But food, is it a problem? No. The rats are looking for you. But how come you have a rat in your house? It could be that you have a rat in the house because you have a bush around the house. So the rat is just a symptom of a bush or not having litter or not having a very neat place. So you have to go deeper. If you are late to work, say, it was because of traffic. Really? Well, you are late. How come? There was traffic. Okay. How come traffic got you? Because you got there late. So how come? Because you left home late. So why did you leave home late? Because you woke up late. So why did you wake up late? Because you are watching movies all night. Why were you watching movies all night? Because your life is not as exciting. You're quite bored. So therefore, the real problem is boredom, not the lateness. So I hope you're getting the idea. I'm just giving you some thoughts here, because this is a bit, sometimes we are treating symptoms rather than the actual problem. So I recall when I was young, I told you that I lived in a very humble background. We're living in one room. And I remember my dad would buy these mouse traps. Sometimes I would see him chasing rats around to kill them. God bless his heart. So, of course, we are living in a rented Muzigo, so it wasn't just us. So the issue were not the rats. And the solution was not killing rats day and night. The issue was, how can we make the surrounding cleaner? Of course, I didn't know then. And he also didn't know, because that's all he knew. He was a P2 graduate. So even though he was very wise in these other areas. So the issue was not the rats. It was the dirt around, the bushes, the kasasiro around, the garbage around. So that, yeah, I hope you get my direction here. So next step is information gathering. So once you know what this problem is, then what sort of sources of information do you need, or what pieces of information do you need? And once you have those pieces, you will list the alternatives. The alternatives in terms of how to move forward. Because when you're looking for a solution, it's not just one solution. I have never been a fan of this only one way. The only way for us to do this is this. No. That is a limited way. That's limited thinking. So you list alternatives and then you weigh alternatives. So those alternatives, which one will get you to your goal faster, quicker, cheaper, in a more elegant way? So those should be some of your determinants. Some of the things you should look at when you're weighing the alternatives is looking at the speed, at the quality, at the amount of resources required, the impact, okay, or how quicker or faster will the solution be executed, how smoother is it going to be. Then once you've weighed the alternatives, you look at the best alternative, and then you implement. So you weigh, then the best alternative, then you act, you implement, you don't dilly-dally any further. And then finally you evaluate. So this is a simple step-by-step model. Once you have the right mindsets and these other strategies I was talking about, this gives you a quick linear way to think through when you're making a decision, okay? And like I've mentioned, when you're thinking through about all this before you implement, you're looking at all those things, what will help you get you there faster, quicker, cheaper, in a more elegant way. And what will give you the best value for time, energy, money, and all these other resources. And of course, then you evaluate after implementing. Did it work? And you might find you made a wrong decision. That's okay. You evaluate, then you go back, possibly because you had a wrong problem. Okay, just like the rat thing that I was talking about, challenge we had when I was growing up. If you kill a rat today and you are seeing another one, so then the problem is there must be a bigger problem, not just the rat. Okay, cool. So those are the steps you have to think through. Yeah, Dorothy is reminding us, asking the 5 whys during problem identification. Emily says, reminds me of the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. You have to ask why up to the 7th level. Okay. So Okay, student of personal development. Great. So then you're in the right circles here. Now, 7th level, yeah, great. You can be and you can even be better. All right. So now, for me though, I do not prescribe that it must be 7th level or 5th level. It could even be 10th level, and it could be the 3rd level. So not every, my divergence from those models is not every level has to have 5 levels or 7 levels. I believe it can have more and it can have less. So it's also to use your intuition, seek for divine wisdom to know when you've really reached the bottom of the issue. And then now you know what the problem is. Okay, but this really helps you to focus on the problem rather than the symptom. If you have, it's not just the headache, it could be that you have malaria, but you have to go deep, you have to test. So then let's look at mastery. With mastery, so my challenge to you is to use the next 4 weeks to make a strategic decision using the 6 steps of effective decision making, which I've just shown you right here. So practice that. And of course, when you're doing these steps, remember the mindsets, also remember the strategies, because the strategies will also help you to have. So here we are going into the tactics, so to speak, but then of course you need the right mindset and the right strategies to do this, to implement this, okay? Please let me know if the instruction is clear. Type in the chat box to wrap this up. So again, please remember to discuss this or to reflect on this. What did you find most useful in this presentation or training? And how are you going to implement the lessons moving forward in your life and career stroke business? All right, cool. All right, so there is a question which has come through. It says, hello, Rotarian Musolini. With the rate at which a lot of things are happening around us, pandemic, life problems, sometimes you lose track of our goals. What keeps you motivated and going strong, even amidst all the happenings? Wow, that's a big question. So number one is my faith in God to know that all will be well. That's number one. Number two, of course, part of what keeps me going is I have a family. So my girls, when they want milk, they don't want to know that my girls want milk. They don't want to know that you know that business has slowed down. So I have to find a way. So family is part of the motivation. Then number three is to always remember or remind myself of my purpose. What's my purpose on earth? So part of my purpose on earth, the bigger purpose, is really to transform lives. So with or without the current challenges, I have to find a way to add value to humanity. So I have to remind myself of that. And number four, the other thing that actually part of what is inspiring me is, but one of the big reasons that I'm inspired is I feel amidst challenges, this is where all of us have to rise up to our very best and do something. Encourage someone, lift someone, give someone a call, smile at someone, you know, teach someone, mentor someone, push someone, lift someone. Because then in moments of challenge, then I strongly believe that's when our humanity should truly show up. Okay. The other key that I do is I write my goals. There's something I'm going through, but mastermind members, you remind me, I wanted us to go through it. It's called The Abundance Book by John Randolph Price. So I go through it every day. So I'll be sharing it with the mastermind members, what I'm learning. So that also helps me. Then the other thing I do is I take care of myself. One of the tricks and techniques I teach my mastermind members is to say, look, when you wake up, first take care of yourself. The problem is most people, when they wake up, first thing, they check their email, they check their phone, and what you're picking up in that moment is you're picking up other people's agenda. So in the end, your day gets influenced and directed by someone else's agenda and not your agenda. So I wake up focused on my agenda. And the agenda is to first make myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically strong. So I will journal, I will pray, I will go for a walk. I will take water, a glass of water, and sometimes read. These days, not every day. I don't know why. So now that I'm saying it, but at night, I make sure I learn something before I go to sleep. I told you that I learned from Warren Buffett's partner that sleep with less ignorance than you had today. So before I go to sleep, at least learn something. So that's one of my rules. I learn something. I have so many programs, more programs than the hours I have available. So I learn, and then I make sure I do something to move forward. So, and I know I have so many things to do. I know there are many people who need my abilities and skills. In future, I will have to reach out to you because I want to reach out to billions of people. You'll know about that before the close of September. You'll know the things I have. So that keeps me awake and excited. And yeah, so I hope that adds value to what you're asking. And I'm just asking, is that clear to you, or does that make sense? Patient says, so mind, body, and heart work in the morning hours before checking the phone and emails. Great reminder. Yes, Patience is one of those people I've had to share that with. Okay, so just let me know, Daniel, if that answers your question. Says very insightful. Okay, great. Glad to hear that. Someone sent a private message. In what practical ways can one overcome insecurities that creep up from failures arising from past decisions? So what I would encourage you, since you sent a private message, I won't mention the name. So number one, please if you don't, I did a program on confidence, so that will help you around that. Then number two, one of the things I teach is that you are not, you may have made a mistake, but you are not a mistake. And everything that happens so one of the other things you need to do is forgive yourself. That's number one. Number two, learn lessons from it. Number three, just know that what happened was for a reason. You may not like what the outcomes were and the experience, but you and I have no idea why you went through that. You have no idea why God took you through that. And I can guarantee you, like night follows day, in a couple of months, in a couple of years, it could even be decades, then you say, now it makes so much sense. Okay. So just know that it was for a reason. And number three, also remember who you are. And that's where the other program I would encourage you to go through is purpose. Okay? That it was one of the first. Once you know your purpose, then it helps you to rise above the insecurities. And then, of course, the other key thing I would encourage you to think about is that you're much more. If you're still alive and kicking, God has a bigger plan for you and a bigger vision for you. And my other advice is, please get my phone number or schedule something with Nathan. I can help you heal those insecurities. Of course, it's at an investment. So I would encourage you to do that. Then it will be, so reach out to Nathan, and you also have my contacts, I believe. Then I can help you. Please let me know. Please send me a text message. Send me a message if this makes sense, if this is helpful. The few tips I've given you, because I can see it's almost time now. It does. Okay, great.